We're getting in the latest visuals right now of that meeting that is going to take place between Prime Minister Modi and the French President. You have that first visuals now coming in on your screens, Ankit. Important to point out here also that if you really see in this entire dynamics of the Russia-Ukraine war and the position that France had taken, but very recently you've had that meeting that the French President has had with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and the statements that came in thereafter. If you really view it from that lens, that how exactly does France really see this entire standoff between India and China, and more importantly, if at all you see that India largely being viewed as the leading voice for Global South and the problems that the Global South faces. Somewhere right down the line, if you see European nations have had a complete disconnect with the Global South, and that is the reason why on multiple occasions you've had the External Affairs Minister Mr. Jaishankar also pointing out that somewhere down the line that the myopic vision that the European nations have had, that needs to somehow be shed off. Let me also bring in Dr. Tara Karta, who's joining us on this broadcast. Dr. Tara, on our screens right now, the latest visuals coming in of Prime Minister Modi meeting French President. If you view it from the lens of what the Global South essentially needs at this point in time, the Prime Minister has been very clear about it. The messaging that has come in from, of course, his colleague, the External Affairs Minister in the past during his visits to the European nations, have always spoken about the disconnect that one sees, the European nations not being able to view the perspective that Global South essentially has. Do you think perhaps that weighs large as far as these bilaterals are concerned?
No, considering that the World Bank has said that, they're expecting an annual inflation spiking to 15.9%. That's something the Global South has been hit very, very badly. There's no two ways on that. But I don't think the Europeans are suffering as well. Their costs of living has gone up. They are, they have differences between themselves on what they should do next. There is an outreach to try and get some mediation across. There is an outreach to get President Zelensky to agree to some kind of an end to the war. So it's not all, what shall I say, one view between the US and Europe. And let me say, for some of those efforts, obviously, would have been NATO-wide. It is not just that the US had nothing to do with it. So there is a very divided opinion, but the trouble is you've got elections in the US, you've got, all these political issues which are interfering with the costs of war, the costs of climate change, which we are seeing. Look at right now you've got this super cyclone off the bay of Myanmar. If you look at the pictures on the satellite, it's my God, it's absolutely frightening. You have a huge, massive crisis on your hands in terms of climate. And you're seeing it now in India. And so we have to, I think in that respect, the Global South is suffering far worse, which is exactly what the indicators said. Especially Asia, South Asia is likely to suffer the worst. So we have to, our presidency is going to be very vital for our interests and that of the countries who are the most affected in an extreme manner by the Ukraine war as well as by climate change.